Hello, everyone. Welcome to Climate of Emotions. In this retreat, we're diving into emotions, climate change, social justice. And today's panel is part of a series of events occurring over 3 days, including intimate small group sessions, experiential sessions. Don't forget to share your experiences with Climate of Emotions using hashtag Climate of Emotions on any of the social media platforms that you are using. Today is all about radical reimagining, where we're going to activate emotions and imagination in a way that allows us to move beyond the thoughts and ideas of the past and to create ideas and concepts for the future that we don't even know exist yet. I'm really excited to share this space with you. I'm Caroline Nasiala. I'm CEO of Bicentrico. We're a managed marketing services company for purpose-driven companies and organizations. And I had so much fun yesterday, especially in the collab. I hope Ida Rama is joining us today. If you're there, please, in your comments, or anyone who was in her collab yesterday, where we composed jingles together and little songs that reflected ideas and concepts from the event, from the retreat, and from our lives. And if you haven't yet downloaded the workbook, I really encourage you to do so. It is indeed a labor of love from the 6 Seconds team and the committee that created it. Shout out to them. And let us know what your favorite part of yesterday was. If you were joining us yesterday, what was your favorite collab? Who was your favorite? Who really spoke to you in the keynotes? Let us know. So I'm going to be moderating the panel today of really incredible people. First off, to give us some opening remarks, we have Ms. Licypriya Kangujam. She is a climate activist and founder of the Child Movement. Ms. Licy, please share us your thoughts with us.
Thank you for the introduction. Thank you 6 Seconds for inviting me to speak in this panel. It's really a great honor for me, and thank you Mr. Joshua Friedmanser for having me here. Hello everyone. My name is Licypriya Kangujam. I am 9 years old. I'm an Indian climate activist and the founder of the Child Movement. My climate justice movement is really an emotion for me. We all know that we are facing a pandemic on one side and floods, droughts, heat waves, cyclone, locusts, air pollution, etc. at the other side. This is the testing time for our leaders and the humanity. Before the lockdown, as a child, it was really a hard challenge for me to balance both my activism and education. People loved me and invited me to various program conferences and forums. I had to travel every day, every week, every month throughout the year. I miss my family and my friends. It was really emotional and a hard time for me. And I was born in a small village of Manipur, which is a small, beautiful northeastern state of India, bordered with Myanmar, and my birthplace is surrounded by lush green mountains and alluring atmosphere. My family forced to migrate in Delhi because of the frequent floods happening in our village and surrounding areas. 2016 was the first time I have came to Delhi, but my life became very messy due to the high air pollution, and it turns me into a child climate activist. Later, I have moved to Bhubaneswar, Odisha for my schooling. Again, my home in Odisha was hit by Cyclone Titli in 2018 and Cyclone Fani in 2019. All such incidents in my young life turns me into a child climate activist. When I remember all such things in my young life, it makes me very emotional all the time. But emotions should not defeat us. All such incidents turn me into a child climate activist. In June 2018, when I was just 6 years old, I got a chance to attend one United Nations disaster conference in July 2018, and it was my life-changing event. After return back from Mongolia in July 2018, I have started my own organization called the Child Movement to call the world leaders to take immediate climate action to save our planet and our future. Greta Thunberg greatly influenced me in February 2019. Since then, at Parliament House of India, I'm standing and I'm telling to our Honorable Prime Minister of India, Mr. Narendra Modi, and our MPs to pass the climate change law as soon as possible from the paper to become action. I have dropped on my schools since February 2019 till February 2020 for 1 year, as I have to travel every week from Bhubaneswar to New Delhi to protest in the Parliament House of India. So because of it, my parents can't afford the expenses to travel every week. So I have no other options left but only to drop on my school. So it was the saddest and emotional part of my life. I miss my school, I miss my friends, I miss my teachers, I miss my family. You see, why should I speak here? Why should I think and worry about the climate change? Why should I get concerned about the global warming? Why should I talk to the people about the various environmental issues happening around the world? I have to read my books, I have to play with my friends, I have to study, I have to enjoy my beautiful childhood life. But our leaders ruined all our beautiful childhood life. Climate change is not only for me or for you or for someone else. Climate change problem is for every single person living in this world. Each and every child living in this country, living in this world, are already the victims of climate change. That's why I'm fighting to save our planet and our future. And my country has many environmental issues like floods, droughts, heat waves, cyclone, locusts, air pollution, etc. At the same time, but these are all the impacts of climate change. I think you all heard the news about Australia bushfire, California wildfire, Amazon rainforest fire, and Siberia forest fire. Billions of animals has died, millions of trees has gone. I'm really very sad. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't even take my food. Many children lost their homes. But these are all the real effect of climate change. Why our leaders don't have the time to share our voice. But this is a real climate emergency. They must act now to save our planet and our future. The air quality in Delhi, the city where I'm currently living, is the worst in the world. Air pollution in India kills about 2 million people every year, and it is the fifth largest killer in India. In Delhi, poor quality air damages the lungs of 2.2 million or 50% of all children. Sacrificing the lives of the millions of innocent children for the failures of our leaders is unacceptable at any cost. Asking clean air to breathe, clean water to drink, clean planet to live is our basic rights. But all these rights are snatched away from us. And I have a dream where there are more electric and solar vehicles on roads instead of more fossil fuel vehicles. I have a dream where there's shutdown of all coal power plants and thermal power plants and replace it by clean renewable energy. I have a dream where there is more bicycles on roads instead of more motor vehicles. Riding a bicycle means there will be zero traffic problems, zero carbon emissions, and zero noise pollution. And it will save our valuable green spaces from development. Today, I have a small message to all the children of the world. Children must tell their parents that they should walk if it's nearby, or they can use the bicycle, or they can use the public transport if it's far distance. Please don't throw garbage or plastic on streets, ocean, rivers, seas, or any other places. And please don't use single-use plastic at your home. Our little things can make a huge difference. And today, I would like to tell something to our leaders. You don't know how to fix the ice melting in the Arctic, Antarctica, and the Himalayas. You don't know how to fix the sea level rising and submerging our beautiful islands. You don't know how to fix the locusts destroying our crops. You don't know how to fix the air pollution affecting our health and killing 6 million people every year. You don't know how to fix the heat waves killing poor people every year. You don't know how to fix the hole in our ozone layer. You don't know how to fix the wildfires killing millions of animals and millions of trees every year. You don't know how to fix this COVID-19 virus killing the humanity every day. You don't know how to fix the cyclones and typhoons devastating millions of homes every year. You don't know how to fix the habitats of countless and voiceless animals now used for mining. You don't know how to fix the rivers and lakes now dry and dead. You don't know how to fix the forests that transform into desert. If you don't know how to fix it, please stop breaking it. I'm not telling here the list of problems happening around the world, but these are all the facts where we can't deny it. The best gift parents can give to their children is not a beautiful house, expensive cars, lots of money. The best gift you can give to your children is a beautiful planet. To give this planet, you have to change yourself. If you can change yourself, then you can change your family. If you can change your family, then you can change your neighborhood. If you can change your neighborhood, then you can change your community. If you can change your community, then you can change your state. If you can change your state, then you can change your country. If you can change your country, then you can change the whole world. Change means empowerment. Empowerment means independent. Independent means freedom. Freedom is when you can protect your land and environment. Freedom is when you can protect your children's future, culture, and health. Freedom is when no one can discriminate you on the basis of caste, creed, color, sex, or any other differences. Freedom is when you can read and write. Freedom is when you are out of hunger. Freedom is when we are all together in this fight. Fight for your freedom. Thank you. Jai Hind. Sanale ba Manipur na yarfe. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much, Licy. We are going to take that energy into the second day of Climate of Emotions. I think I can speak for everyone. And I love that if you don't know how to fix it, don't break it. Next to share some thoughts is Sara Cogunuk. She is the Natural Resources Manager at UNICEF, and she is joining us from Costa Rica. Welcome, Sara.
Hi, I am very grateful to be here today, and thank you, Joshua. Thank you, Caroline, for the invitation. I like maybe Caroline, if it is possible, start with the first question.
Yes, absolutely. So we will start off with our question that this is going to go eventually to all of the panelists, that I'll ask everyone to answer this question. But could you tell us something in nature that has inspired your work or has made you, grounded you in the work that you do in natural resources and the work you do for the planet?
Thank you, Caroline. To answer this, I would like that you could picture my childhood. Let's imagine a rural town in Costa Rica, the place where I grew up. It's called Peñas Blancas. There are only mountains around it, the animal sounds in every corner. We can even hear them from the house. Every day you can see the sky perfectly with the stars, with the color of sun rays or sunset, maybe like paradise. There are some totally clean bodies of water, all is in peace, is in connection. There I was, a girl taking her first step among the trees, hand in hand with my grandmother, who take me the nature is resistance and resilience. When I was 13 years old, I got lost in the middle of those mountains that surround Peñas Blancas. I had gone to collect coffee in a coffee plantation, and I left early, and on the way back, some cows made me take another path. I remember that the first minutes I did not know what to do. I knew the mountain by heart. I had traveled it, but never alone. So I decided to walk. After what seemed like a long time, I stopped and contemplated everything. There was absolute silence, and far from feeling fear, I feel peace. I feel part of everything, of those beautiful mountains, of each tree, of each sound of nature. I understand that that connection was essential for me. I think that after that experience, that I feel part of everything, I understood my grandmother's world better. I understood better what was around me, and I led me to become fully aware. And with the passage of time, I could only understand that this was not exclusive to Peñas Blancas, because the nature was very great, and that its capacity of resilience, regeneration, and resistance is what has allowed everything to exist as we know it. And these qualities are born from vulnerability to change. And seeing that made me think that I also connect as a woman with nature because of those vulnerabilities, which are part of a development imposed in a patriarchal way, which excluded us. And that also make me us be in resistance, and that has forced us to be resilient and regenerate beings. Basically, I was able to look to raw nature, and that allowed me to connect with everything, that brought my feet to reality, that gave me peace. It also allowed me to reflect on it, and I began to see it with sisterhood, and there I understood that being radical ways are the only way possible. Seek the freedom of nature to manage to face an environmental and climate crisis. So I will say that my vision has been one of closeness for my childhood on Peñas Blancas in Costa Rica, but understanding nature has something vulnerable, and seeing that we share those vulnerabilities has made me launch myself towards the most radical.
Thank you so much, Sara. That sounds amazing. And I hope that we get a chance to see more of Costa Rica and follow you and your work. I think we can all look back into our childhoods and find some place, whether that be in the city or in the country or wherever you grew up, the memories of nature are very vivid many times. That's really beautiful. So Sara, I invite you to stay on while we welcome the other panelists. But before we continue to the panel discussion, just a reminder for our audience, if you're not yet registered for small group co-create sessions or the experiential collab sessions, please do that. While the panelists, of course, are fantastic, and we're going to learn a lot from them right now in the next half hour or so. Really, at the heart of Climate of Emotions is the self-study guide and those small groups, those co-create and collab discussions. So we'll put the link in the chat, and really today's small groups are going to be really fun. I know I'm going to be participating in one in a couple of hours here. I'm really excited to play and unlock imagination. The session that I'm going to be in is we're going to be in our backyards So that's going to be really nice to get out in the sun for me, and wherever you are in the world, whatever that looks like, to be able to go out on your patio or into your plants, maybe inside your home if you're in an apartment. That's going to be really fun. So now we're going to open it up into a more interactive conversation and invite the other panelists to join us. A few of our panelists that we had scheduled for today have encountered some health challenges this week and aren't able to join us. So Mariama and Lauren, hopefully you get to see this in the future. Sometimes we wish you well. We wish you healing and wellness in the next couple of days for you and your family members. So just keep them in your thoughts and send good vibes their way. So joining us today are Dr. Kathy Brown, Assistant Professor of Art Education at the University of North Texas, and Jada Kennedy, climate activist and human rights activist, and member of many movements. Thank you so much for joining us. And so I'm going to direct the same question that I asked Sara. I'm going to direct first to you, Kathy. If you could tell us, if you could introduce yourself, introduce your work briefly, and then tell us what is something in nature that has helped you in your work and has helped you really reimagine the world in the future.
Well, thank you for having me, of course, Joshua and Patty and Carolyn. So first, I'm a professor at UNT Art Education. I was an art teacher for elementary and middle school for many years. And one of my research methodologies I use is called self-study or autoethnography. And in addition to that, with my colleague, Lauren Cross, wasn't able to come today. We are co-directing a series called the 2044 series, Anti-Racist Praxis as Art Design, Futurist Pedagogy. And then when I thought about the question that you had about how in nature, and I remember as I grew up in Michigan. I live in Texas now, but I grew up in Michigan, and we have all 4 seasons, and I just remember how visually stunning fall is every year, and as a kid, of course. And I remember being a teacher, especially when I had elementary kids, how integral nature, especially trees, was to our kind of our making or things that we imagined or thought about. And but with like the little kids, we would do leaf prints, or we would do leaf rubbings, or we would learn how to paint trees and do the fall leaf dots or whatnot. And with older kids, you might go outside and draw from observation and learn how to draw texture and things like that. So when I think back on it, nature and the environment was always an integral part of my pedagogy, even if I wasn't necessarily conscious of that. And even now, as a college professor, when I'm teaching teachers how to go in and turn to work with kids, we often do things with environment and recycling. We recycle our Chihuly, you know how there's the one with the water bottles, the Chihuly chandelier, or we make endangered sea creatures. And myself and my doctoral advisor, we made an article about art from the ocean, or taking art from the beach and making it into trash from the beach and making it into art, called the Wash the Shore Project, which is out of Banyan, Oregon. So I think that especially trees and leaves has been a constant throughout, and the beach is something in nature that now as an adult and throughout as well has always been important to me. If I answered your question properly.
Yes, absolutely. Where are you from in Michigan?
Detroit. I was born and raised in Detroit. Yeah, I'm a city girl.
Cool. I'm from Bay City, Michigan, which is near Saginaw. I don't know if you know where that is. Yeah. So I grew up in Michigan too, and I definitely can relate to that. The trees were always, something that was a really important part of my education, especially in elementary school. We would go. I remember there was a wetland right in the back of our elementary school, and we would have to go there, and we went there for science projects, we went there for art projects, we went there for math class, every chance that our teachers got. So I think that's also a privilege that I had growing up, was to have teachers that incorporated that. That's really beautiful.
Thank you.
Jada, I'd love to hear a little bit more from you. If you could introduce yourself and your work briefly, and then let us know how from what you've heard from Sara and Kathy, what's something that in nature that has inspired you?
Hi, everyone. First of all, thank you for having me. Then I myself am Jada Kennedy, and I am a climate justice and human rights activist from Belgium. I am known to be an organizer from Fridays for Our Future and Nuclear Climate Belgium. And I use the term like activism, activist or human rights activist as an umbrella term because I do believe that every crisis that the planet faces is connected to human rights. So for that reason, I also advocate for different aspects, like all aspects connected to intersectionality, like Black Lives Matter and all that, and also indigenous people and etc. Besides this climate activism, I also have my own activism. If it's not on social media, it's in my own surroundings, because you cannot, a system cannot fail you if it, for who it wasn't built to protect. Let's say that. Dubois once said that. And that's a statement, quote I hold very dear to my heart. So therefore I state, I go by statement saying I am unapologetically human. And then to answer your question, actually, what touched me in nature to keep going with my activism and all that is basically seeing my surroundings change in my environment. Let's state once again, Belgium is a dominant white male privileged country, very privileged, and you already see major, not major compared to the global south, but you already see changes, and there are already consequences for the people living here, and it's not looking good. And then I can just resemble or compare our system of today with a highway. I always do this because it's very comparable in my eyes, because we are always in our society trying to reach our goal the fastest and easiest way possible, but very fast we can get stuck in traffic. So it's like very vulnerable, and it's not sustainable at all. So we need to stop the business as usual, and we need to keep going for a sustainable and livable future for everyone. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely. So it's the changes that you see now in the environment that are really fueling your work and inspiring your work.
Yes, indeed. And also the connection with my roots. It goes to Trinidad and Tobago and further. There's emotional connection, definitely. So yeah.
Absolutely. And that's actually a really good segue. I like the metaphor for a highway, because I think a lot of times we're so focused on the end point and the end goal, even sometimes when we work in sustainability or social justice, that we're so focused, we're so laser focused on that end goal that we don't realize that really it's the process and the journey of getting to that is the work, and staying fueled for that journey is the work. If you don't fuel your vehicle, it's not going to take you very far. And so I'd love to ask you and direct this question to you, Sara. When we're really focused on outcomes, we have a very outcomes-focused society. How can we continue to prioritize process, discovery, and play?
Thank you, Caroline. I think we have to remember that the final goals are so important, but I share the idea that processes are most important, because in the processes is where the communities take the real action, the young people take the real action, the women take the real action. So maybe we can see the processes in Caroline is phases. in phases. So, okay, in phases where the communities, the people, first take capacitations, take education, take processes to learn um, about climate change, about climate action. And these processes, the people can work in team. And Caroline, I can speak in Spanish.
Yeah, go ahead and use words in Spanish if you need to, and I can do my best.
Ok, porque considero que las personas en estos procesos de capacitación también van a aprender a desarrollar nuevas habilidades que les va a permitir mejorar aún más las acciones que puedan desarrollar.
Right. So in the process of learning, you learn new abilities that help you along the way. You can't just come into a space and start work right away. You have to take the process, you have to get through the process of learning and learning those new abilities and skills.
Also, every process included change, great change, which little by little is transformed into a collective change, and those changes are what we occupy to demand real climate action. And also, as part of the processes, we are going to rediscover ourselves with our qualities, with our vulnerabilities of individual shape, but always of collective shape. So I think the way towards the process rather than the result, is to understand that this is where what is really important happens, what will transform society and what allows us to move forward. Also, that we learn from these processes.
Absolutely. I think of some of the conversations that I've had recently about economic and environmental and social systems. We know that the one that we're in right now is not the right one, but we don't necessarily even have an idea of what it's supposed to be. And we will never get to the end point, right? It will, when we get there, there will always be another better way that we want to do things. I'd love to hear, Kathy or Jada, what are your thoughts around that? What's the importance of process in your work?
For me personally, I'd say it's continuously informing yourself. If you totally are not informed about an issue, you can't engage in conversations in your surroundings, and it always starts by yourself to inform yourself, then starting the conversation, take concrete action to what extent is possible. Of course, it depends from area to area, from personal capabilities to someone else. So continuously educating yourself, because I do strongly believe that the educational system we have now will not provide you the information needed to make concrete change in the society. So informing yourself, dare to engage in conversations, and keep your mental health in check, definitely.
Absolutely. And I'd love to hear your perspective on anti-racist work and how that comes into play, Kathy. That with some of the people that are some of our clients that work in the diversity, equity, inclusion space, that ally is not something you become, it's something that you're consistently becoming, and you never actually get to it as an endpoint.
Yes, and it's interesting that you say becoming, because when you said process over product, basically I thought about sort of Deleuze and Guattari, the philosophers who their ideas of becoming. And I was thinking that, especially in a field like teacher education, where it's sometimes very outcome or performance based, because you have to pass state tests, and you have to do student teaching, and there's a lot of things that you need to accomplish in order to be able to get to the goal. But I think teacher education as a whole is sort of thinking about the idea of radically reimagining to prepare people to be anti-racist pedagogues, because we know that in the very near future in America that minorities will be the majority, and most of the teaching population is still Caucasian women. So you're trying to prepare students to be able to go into environments where the students may not look like them and still be very, very effective, which you can do. So I think when I think of process over product and sort of radically reimagining our field, one of the things I think that maybe as a whole is happening is the push for social emotional learning, which is something that Jada talked about, sort of teaching the whole child and mental health, and not just sort of saying high stakes testing and we're only judging students on this. So I think social emotional learning as a whole is something that is moving towards that direction. And the idea of project-based learning is something that we already do in art education, but it's something that is now being welcomed in many different fields, as well as like the design thinking process and kind of other ways of iterizing or iterization of what can be. So I think those are things that come to mind when I think about process over product. And then specifically for sort of the ideas of anti-racism, which we know is kind of a buzzword, and sometimes in the field of education, like all fields, there are like buzzwords. And my hope is that it's not something that's just for the moment, because we're currently in the middle of the Chauvin trial, Derek Chauvin, the police officer who murdered George Floyd. And we're currently in the midst of yet another uprising in Minneapolis over Djambony, right? So as we're in the middle of these things, and as a collective, we're trying to say, how are we anti-racist, which is to be actively against racism. I personally think it is becoming an idea of becoming, because you cannot immediately be anti-racist if you're not willing to look at the historical antecedents and recent historical antecedents. Just last summer, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And I think because people are not, the school systems, that we're all from different systems, don't necessarily teach that in schools. So it's something that we need to begin to do in a more effective manner, as well, of course, in the home. But so I think the idea of becoming an ally or becoming an anti-racist person of color, because if you're a person of color who's an educator and you're anti-racist, sometimes it can be precarious, especially pre-George Floyd. But now that unfortunately, this brother was martyred, now the doors have opened and more people are maybe bolder in speaking about these issues. So I think anti-racism is at the forefront, and hopefully it's something that will remain a part of the lexicon, remain a part of the conversation for many, 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 many more years to come. Because in order to decolonize, you have to actually get in and dismantle curriculum. And that is something that takes time to do. So I'm hoping that over a long period of time, we will continue this work. If I answer the question, I keep saying that, but I want to make sure.
No, absolutely. I think, we're talking about the process, right? And that's what you're saying, that anti-racism, allyship, those are processes. They're not goals that you achieve. They're processes, they're ongoing processes that happen over a very long period of time. And really the work is keeping it at the forefront. It's really easy to see it at the forefront when tragedy hits, when very public tragedy hits. But for communities of color, that tragedy happens every day. So it doesn't stop for them. And so the whole society is able to continue that work. That is the process. And so I think that the process is really important, and people in this work, like the three of you, are in this every day. And I imagine that the hardest moments are when those conversations aren't at the forefront of everyone's minds, and that they're not there. When you feel stuck in a place and things are not moving forward, how do you deal with that sense of stagnation and despair, and what helps you find new possibilities? I'll open that up to anyone who wants to respond.
I'll go. I'll just say that when you say that, I always think, and I talk to my students right now. I'm teaching a graduate level class, and I always say, well, what can you do? You know, because I think sometimes a student may feel like, and I say students isn't, you know, graduate students, undergraduate students, but may feel like, well, I'm not an activist like Jada, or I'm not an activist like Sara. They may feel like I can't be at the front lines of, you know, Stop Anti-Asian Hate rally or Black Lives Matter rally. What can I do? So I try to tell students to think about it within your sphere of influence, because we all do have a sphere of influence. And if within your sphere, you are a change agent, you can plant the seeds, and in turn that person plants the seeds, and in turn that person plants the seeds. And I like to think of it, there's a researcher named Amy Cray who says teachers are in the future's business. So I like to think that you're always thinking of what's going to happen if I'm planting these seeds, what in turn will that student do in the future? So I always take it back to, I think, what can I do? And I can change my curriculum. I can have these dialogues in my class. My research partner and I can create these talk series and produce articles and disseminate information. I can go to rallies too, which I have, but I can also, within what I personally do and what my personal expertise is, I can decolonize, I can be anti-racist, I can be an activist in that way, if that, you know, that helps me not to get depressed.
Absolutely. Yeah, do your part, right? And try and find what you are uniquely positioned to do. Jada, I'd love to hear from you about that same question. What do you do when you're stuck?
First of all, keep my mental health in check, because a lot of people don't realize that engaging continuously in this discussion of racism and colonialism and all that is very emotionally draining and energy draining. And you really need to take it back to yourself and just take your breath and really take care of yourself. People really underestimate this, but then also it's very important to keep this conversation going to your possible limits, because if we can't even have a conversation about this, then how do we actually want to dismantle the system? So it's a real struggle sometimes, I'm not gonna lie, but I'm determined to keep going all day, every day. And yeah, that's my vision upon this.
Absolutely. Yeah. The personal mental health is really, of course, important. And and I think it also comes back to what you're saying, Kathy, about just think about what you could do. Just think about what your piece is. You don't have to fix the whole problem. You are not responsible for the whole system, but you are responsible for your piece, for your part. And that's okay. Sara, how about you? What do you do? What do you think of when you're stuck?
So when this is happening, I try to walk in nature. When I can go to nature, I try to recreate this in my mente. So, and first step, this other thing that I do is focus not on the problem, focus in the solution. I try to think, can I do what can I do with this problem? And has helped me a lot. It the three step is also talk to people who have more time on this topic, or people who are just starting out, because this gives me a new perspective. Because many times I feel that stay with only perspective clothes us and make us not be able to see beyond.
Absolutely. So one, take a walk. I love that. I love that. That's so important. Take a walk. get outside if you can, and take a walk around, take a look around, and then try to focus on the solutions. I think that's where creativity comes out, right? That's where you need to be just radically imagining the craziest solutions, even if people will tell you they're unrealistic. You have to make sure you stay in that mindset, right? Yeah, I love that. And that brings me to a quote that Josh shared with us before the panel, that all social justice work is science fiction. That's a quote from Adrienne Marie Brown, as quoted by Dream Hampton and Octavia's Brood. And I love that it's all science fiction because we're imagining something that doesn't exist. We're imagining a world and solutions, like you're talking about, Sara, that don't even exist. So if we could go beyond that, the current imagination, what we can see in our world, hear, touch, and taste now, into that realm of science fiction, I want to know what would you dream into being? What would be the system or the world? What does that look like for you? I'll start with Jada.
In this world of today, it's a question of what wouldn't I dream, like the perfect world. I find it very hard to imagine right now, but it would be awesome that there would be an end to inequity. Everyone always speaks about inequality, but inequity, to my personal experience, is way more valuable than also just the intersectional aspects that people don't really realize. People always say, for example, climate change, okay, yeah, the weather changes, this is that, but like, educate people like they should be educated, not what fits into the system, and to keep the same cycle going continuously. So a better educational system would definitely be key. And I don't know about capitalism, to be honest. But yeah, this is a question that will continuously broaden my view on things, and the older I get, this will continuously change. So we'll see where this goes.
No, but better educational system and maybe a whole new economic system that includes more. Sara, what is your big dream right now? What is your sci-fi dream for the future? What kind of solution are you imagining?
Caroline, can I respond in Spanish?
Go for it.
Okay. Sorry for my English.
You'll have to stop every once in a while so I can try and collect it, okay?
Thank you. Okay, yo creo que mi mayor deseo en este momento está relacionado con el tema de reducción de vulnerabilidades. Si pudiera como hacer que algo ocurra, sería justamente que los grupos vulnerables ya no lo sean más. Básicamente que haya justicia climática más allá del discurso, sino en la realidad, y que esta pueda estar ligada con la protección y conservación de los ecosistemas.
Yeah, so, and I know that this discourse, oh, I'm hearing a little bit of echo. I'm not sure what that's from. But I know this discourse because I worked in an organization that was UN funded in Latin America we talk about reducción de vulnerabilidades, which is like the reduction of vulnerabilities. And I think in English, you would probably say the reduction of inequities or inequalities. And so it doesn't have quite a direct translation, but it's a really interesting concept that we talk about vulnerable groups in that discourse. and not necessarily saying because of inequities, because there are unequal systems. So that being just a concept of the past, that we no longer have, that we no longer even have to talk about a reduction of vulnerabilities or vulnerable groups because those inequalities don't exist anymore. And that climate action is a reality and not just something that we talk about in a sort of future tense, that it's just a normal part of life, is climate action. How about you, Kathy? What is your sci-fi type concept or reality that you're dreaming of?
Well, this is right up my alley because I am becoming, going back to the idea of becoming, I'm becoming an Afrofuturist, which we know science fiction is a part of it, but we know Afrofuturism is a larger concept of sort of reclamation, and ideas of alienation and representation. And so when I think about when you said that, the first thing that came to mind was Bennett Capers. He's a lawyer at Fordham University. He wrote a 2019 article about Afrofuturism, looking through that lens and talking about policing in the year 2044. But one of the things he talked about is what comes to my mind, and building off what you ladies have already said, is the idea of dismantling hierarchies. So the ideas of there's no longer hierarchies of race, gender, sexuality, class. And that is one of the major points of his work, and how he's idealizing this utopia of what 2044 and beyond can be. In addition to when he talks about the ideas of policing and how technology would be used as a way to eradicate some of the issues that we currently have with policing. And then when I think of my own sort of utopia, of course, I would love to be in a world where climate change, which of course our former president didn't believe it was real, but that's another conversation. He's no longer in the wilds. But a world where, of course, we are no longer having these issues, as well as environmental racism. I live near Dallas, Texas, where there's currently a place called Shingles Mountain in an African-American populated area of Dallas, where people are getting sick because of landfills that have been there for, forever and ever. So I think once we get to this place of these futurist ideas, I think places like Shingle Mountain will no longer exist. And the ideas that only certain groups live in these, communities that are going to kill you from the environment, that will no longer exist. So I think that is what comes to mind when I think of how I would love to see the future.
Absolutely. I would love to hear and just do a rapid response round robin of how 3 ways that you would describe your feelings about your work today. So I'll start. I'll give you a few moments to think on that question. 3 words, just 3 words that describe your emotions, your feelings about your work today, in this moment, thinking about what you have done this morning. Jada, I know it's later for you in Europe, or what you're about to do today as you start your day, Sara and Kathy, and that it's about mid-morning for us. So I think, Jada, I can see by your face that you're contemplating this question. Do you have an answer? Can you start us off?
Yes, I can, but 3 emotions is really pinning it down. I would say I am, to a certain extent, motivated. Also somewhere exhausted, but a third emotion would also be, I wouldn't say hopeful, but curious where this goes.
How about Kathy? What are some words that describe how you're feeling right now about your work?
So I was jotting down. I'm a note taker in person. So I was thinking the first thing that came to my mind was calming. because I know maybe we've already maybe had busy mornings, or, it's only Tuesday, but, there's a lot, usually a lot that you have to accomplish. So this feels very calming to be in this space with you all. I'm talking about sort of these large issues, but in a way that's also invigorating. That was my second feeling, is that I do feel invigorated to be in a space with, of course, like-minded people who are thinking towards the future and are change agents. And then the last one I wrote down was uncertain, because I was thinking to myself, well, once I finish this call, of course you have a to-do list and you have things you need to accomplish for the day, but I was thinking, what else can I do, like in my immediate, within my immediate day, to move towards the things that I know that I need to do for these larger issues. So I think those were the three things: calming, invigorating, but uncertain.
And we have some responses in the chat as well from Abdullah: gratitude, hope, and motivation. Beautiful. From Henna: inspired, connected, and grateful. A lot of gratitude coming out of those. Sara, what are 3 words that would describe how you're feeling right now?
Yes, maybe happiness, gratitude, and hopeful.
That's wonderful. And Libby tells us respect, inspired, motivated, energized, inspired, and hope from Stephanie. I imagine a lot of that inspiration is rooted in the 3 of you and your words today. And so I want to thank you so much again for being here. We have just a couple of minutes left. And so the last the last question that I have for the 3 of you will need to be very quick responses. But what's something from this conversation, something that maybe one of the other panelists has said that you're going to take with you to strengthen your optimism? I'll start with Kathy.
Taking a walk, being in nature, and focusing on your mental health, that both of the ladies said. Yeah.
Great. And Sara, what is something that you're taking into your day?
First, all that listening this incredible woman, and focus in the mental health, and focus in the people that no are activists, because sometimes in climate action we focus in climate activists, but I think, like Katy say, the people that know is climate activists are really important and have different feelings respect this fight.
Absolutely. And Jada, we'll end with you. What is something you're taking away from this conversation to strengthen you today?
I would personally say taking it back to yourself, like it starts with you. You can't live your life without having a good mental health. So setting healthy boundaries, and just rewinding. And if it's toxic, just step away from it. Yeah.
Beautiful. Lovely. Well, thank you so much again. For a reminder for our audience, we have some small group sessions, and that you've also received, once you sign up for those, you've received your Climate of Emotion Self-Study workbook, so you can continue that restorative work during this retreat. And I'll hand it over to Josh to close us out.
I just wanted to say thank you to the panelists for being here today, and also big thank you to Caroline for all of your work on Climate of Emotions and on moderating today. The feeling that is coming up for me is gratitude. Today's focus is on radical. And radical is a word I didn't really know the meaning of until I read it in our Climate of Emotions workbook. Radical means at the root. And by the way, if you don't have your Climate of Emotions workbook, it is amazing, and I hope you will access it. All you have to do is sign up for any of the tickets. So we have tickets that are just for the live streams, or we have tickets for small group sessions. If you sign up for any of them, in your confirmation, you'll see there's a link to get your workbook. And it's like this incredible resource of activities about what Jada was talking about, the inner work. One of the principles of emergent strategy, and emergent strategy is a book written by Adrienne Marie Brown and others. And they talk about several principles for a just transformation. And one of the principles of emergent strategy is small is all. And I don't know how you all feel, but as Caroline was asking those questions about change, I look at the complexities of the changes that we're facing in the world, and sometimes I'm completely overwhelmed. And it just seems impossible to me. And I look at the systemic structures that Kathy talked about. And I look at the depth of vulnerabilities that Sara brought up, and my heart breaks and I feel helpless. And then I remember this principle of small is all, or as we say at 6 seconds, all change starts on the inside. And I wonder, how can I open my heart? How can I see what I'm not seeing? How can I have the courage to hope? How can I have the courage to step forward just a tiny bit, even if that tiny bit is literally stepping through that door to go outside and be with a plant? These small steps in this principle, these small steps become the change in the world. The micro becomes the macro. And that's really our theme for tomorrow. And you'll hear more about that in the incredible small group sessions that are happening tomorrow. And today is about imagination. So I hope you'll join the small group sessions and wake up your imagination to get beyond what's possible now and into the future. Thank you all for joining. Thank you, panelists, and Caroline and Licy, and we will see you in 11 hours at our closing for today, our closing panel for today, and then tomorrow, same time, same place. Bye, everybody.